There are three candidates, yourself and two others, who are the most visible and who are leading the Republican field right now. A lot of people in the state are confused because first, when I went on your website and I went on the other two candidates as well, the one thing I could credit you for is that at least you have a statement of issues and your position on the issues, and the other two did not. So it's like, okay, well, that's a nice picture, a lot of nice pictures, but what about the issues? Where is it that people, who have not made a decision, and that's something that came out in the poll, that a lot of Republicans have not made a decision yet. How do they distinguish between you and the others on the issues?
Well, I think there's three things. They should look at our experiences in life, what we've been doing in our professional life, and whether that bears on this race. They should look at our record in office. And look at those records and compare them. And third, they should look at what positions we have and what are our ideas to solve the big problems that are facing this country. And let me go through those really quick. Look, I'm a guy who's been spent some time in public service. I was the Deputy Attorney General. I was the Chief of Staff to the Governor for a year. And I was a U.S. Senator. But most of my life, I've spent in the private sector. And I'm the only major candidate in this race who has ever been involved in the business community, only person who's created a job, only the person who knows how to make ends meet in a business setting. I'm a chairman of a board of a firm here in Florida that has more than 300 employees, and I know what that means. And we need more people like that in Washington. Second, I've got a record, and I was in the U.S. Senate for 16 months. And
that's a dangerous thing to say as a politician.
Well,
I'm a record.
I'm proud of it. It's not that kind of a record. I'm proud of it, and you and I have talked about it before. I've been rated by the American Conservative Union. I got a 93% rating. I got the Taxpayer Hero Award, the Tax Liberator Award, 100% from the Chamber of Commerce. I was up in Washington. My record was a conservative, principled record. And by the way, I got things done. Even though I was in the minority party, even though I was the most junior senator, for most of the time I was there, I got things done. I think that matters. I've got the most conservative record of anyone who's running for this. And the last thing is, what are you going to do when you get there? I've got a vision, and I've got some proposals to tackle this debt and deficit, and that is why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. It would be very easy for me, Lisa, to stay home now with my wife and our 4 kids who are all under the age of 8, and to work at my law firm and help run that firm and be successful in the private sector. But what I saw in Washington is shocking. It's bizarre and broken, this process we have, and we are going to run this country over the cliff and have a financial disaster if we don't cut spending. I've got a proposal, the 2007 solution. It's on my website at georgeforflorida.com. Let's cut spending back to where it was at 2007 across the board. We'll balance the budget in 2 years, cut the debt in half by the end of the decade. That's a program and a solution for this terrible deficit and debt problem we have.
Now, I read that you were the youngest United States Senator while you served in office, or at least part of the time. And you had a birthday this week. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
The three front-runner candidates are all young. The other two are young, even younger than you.
Yeah, we're all, I think, within 6 months of each other.
Senator Nelson, they said, and it was an article, and I found this really interesting. They said that when he first ran for office for the Florida House, that you were 3 years old.
Yeah, I think he first ran in 72, so I was born in 69.
What's your position on term limits? We hear everyone saying, I'm for term limits, I'm for term limits. That's until they get into office. But then once we see them getting into an office like Congress or U.S. Senate, they never want to get out.
Sure. Well, I think people shouldn't stay there forever. The problem with term limits, and I'm not decided on this, to be honest with you, the problem with term limits is you throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are some folks there, like a Tom Coburn, that I'd like for him to stay in the U.S. Senate forever. There are other folks that should never have gotten there in the first place. So it's a challenge. I can tell you that if I have a chance to go back and the people of Florida honor me with electing me to go back to the U.S. Senate, I will not stay forever. I think 6 or 12 years is plenty of time to get things done. I'd like to help solve these problems that are afflicting us in Washington, that threaten this country, that threaten what it means to be Americans. And if I can go back there and be successful, then I'll come back home to Florida and work in the private sector again and enjoy beautiful Florida. Our founders never intended for people to be in politics their whole life. They intended it to be public service, public sacrifice. You go there, you do your good work for the people, and then you come home and you get back to your private sector life.
Israel. I don't know if you read today's Broward Politics that came out by Anthony Bann. It said that Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz said that she supports President Obama's position on Israel and the Middle East. What is your response to that?
Well, I think because Debbie is the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, she's probably going to support everything the president says. If he says the sky's green, she'll probably agree with it. Look, what the president did on Israel is it's horrible. His statement is something that I can't abide. for Israel to go back to pre-1967 borders would be suicide for the Jewish people in the state of Israel, and I don't support it. Israel is our greatest friend in the region. They are a beacon of light and hope. They believe in the values that we do. They believe that people should elect their government, that they can criticize their government, that they can worship freely. They believe in the rule of law. Those are the kind of folks we need to stand on their side. I'm a 100% staunch supporter of the state of Israel, and if I have a chance to go back to the U.S. Senate, I will continue the fight that I fought when I was there to stand up for our friend, the people of Israel.
Senator Nelson, there's a lot of talk. We have one Republican senator and one Democratic senator from the state of Florida that one vote cancels out the other. Did you find that when you were there that he was canceling out your votes?
Well, he does unless he can make a cosmetic vote that looks good for him. This is how it works. The majority sits down there. We don't electronically vote in the U.S. Senate. We actually walk down to the front and talk to the Secretary of the Senate, and we cast our votes. And the Democrats know exactly how many votes they need. When I was there, they had either 60 or 59 votes. So they knew what they needed. And they all stand around, and if they can take a pass on a tough vote that's going to hurt them politically, they will. But most of the time, Nelson was a reliable vote for the liberal agenda of President Obama, Harry Reid, and Nancy Pelosi. So he does cancel out the Republican vote. He does cancel out the vote of the values of most Floridians. And right now, he's canceling out Marco Rubio's vote. What we need is someone up there who can stand next to Marco Rubio, who's going to be able to support our values and be able to help restore this great country.
In terms of endorsements, have you had any endorsements yet? I know that you worked as the chairman for the campaign to elect Governor Jeb Bush. Are you working on things like that, and have you been able to get any? And you also supported Senator Rubio, and I don't know if at this point in the Republican primary, if any of those are getting behind you or any of the other candidates in terms of an endorsement.
Well, no announcements to make today. Of course, I'm talking to people all over the state, not just elected officials, but grassroots people and everyday Floridians. And I think we'll have our fair share of those. But frankly, I don't think they mean much. I think the most important thing is who the candidate is and what the candidate stands for. And I've never really seen an endorsement make a big difference in a race. I mean, it's a rare occasion when it does. So I think what will happen is voters will look at our records, look what we stand for, and pick the person they think is best. And I hope at the end of the day, having a chance to evaluate me, what I stand for, and what I've accomplished, that they'll pick George LeMieux.
Healthcare, there's a lot of talk about what's happening in the United States Congress with Medicare. What's your position on that, and where do you stand? Where can that be improved?
Well, we need to improve all of our entitlement programs because we can't afford them. We're in the situation right now where we've got a $14 trillion national debt. It's gone up $3 trillion in 2 years, $5 trillion in 4. It took this country 200 years to go $1 trillion in debt around 1980, and now each and every year we go more than $1 trillion in debt. It's absolutely unsustainable. We spend $200 billion a year now on interest payments alone. By the end of the decade, it's $900 billion, and we simply just can't afford that. Your government can't make that interest payment. So Medicare has to be reformed. Paul Ryan has this proposal, and he's bold and courageous for putting it forward. There's another proposal by Senator Toomey, which I'm reviewing, which I think may actually even be a better proposal. I have my 2007 solution, which would also capture all federal spending. We need real proposals. We need to have the United States Congress debating real proposals that cut trillions of dollars in spending if we're going to save America, and Medicare has to be reformed. We need to ensure that seniors have health care, but we're going to have to reform the way that we provide for it.
How do we do that? Do we raise the age
for
Social Security?
Yeah, I think raising the age is one of the ideas that has to be considered, and you could do it the way that Senator Rubio has proposed for Social Security, which is that people who are 55 and older, it would not affect them. So if you're on Social Security now,
so for us,
or you're about to be,
we get punished. Yeah. You and I.
But all of us under, well, we're going to get punished anyways because look, the Democrats' plan is to do nothing. They have no plan. There is no leadership. They are failing. And Medicare in 5 to 12 years is going to go bankrupt. So if you don't want to do anything and you want to follow the Bill Nelson, Harry Reid plan to do nothing, then Medicare goes bankrupt, and people who are seniors right now who are on Medicare are going to have a substantial impact in their Medicare. That's not a solution. Doing something that saves Medicare for folks who are on it now and perhaps changes it for those of us who are younger but still keeps it around is the right thing to do.
About cutting debt. And then we saw Governor Scott cut the budget today. And what they're reporting is that his poll numbers are plummeting. What effect is that going to have around the rest of the country? The governor went in promising to make big cuts to spending. He did that, and now people are getting angry at what he cut.
Well, it's a hard thing to do.
What's your response? I mean, for a lot of elected officials, they go in and if they're courageous and they make these cuts, like they say they are, and then people get upset and they don't get back into office.
Well, that's fine. That's the way it should be. You should do what's right no matter if it's politically expedient or not. And I know that Governor Scott feels that way. Governor Scott's success in public office, his political fortune is going to be tied to one thing. Does this economy recover, and do we create jobs? If we're creating jobs and Florida climbs out of this recession, then the people of Florida, I believe, will be supportive of Governor Scott. He is laser focused on that issue of trying to get government out of the way and create jobs so that we can get Floridians back to work. With 1 million people in the state unemployed, that should be his first priority.
Immigration. They were unable to pass a requirement for E-Verify in the Florida legislature this year. What's your position on that? And do you see it as a problem in Florida, something that we need to control?
Well, it's a failure.
Illegal immigration, I should say.
It's an absolute problem that we need to control. And the failure of the Florida legislature to adopt an E-Verify, in my view, was a failure of leadership. We have, what was purported to be the most conservative legislature we've ever had. Namely the Senate president, I assume. I'm being kind. It was labeled that way, but this was something that couldn't get done, and everybody supports this. Look, E-Verify is not perfect, and it needs to be improved. But to have something where people who are employers have to check a website in good faith to make sure that the person that they want to employ is legal makes all the sense in the world. We have a big illegal immigration problem in this country. We have an illegal immigration problem in the state. It's a little different here than it is on the border states in the Southwest. Here, it's a visa overstay problem for the large part. But we need to make sure that people are following the law. If people are here illegally, they need to go home. And that's my position on it. I want strong border security. And I want to make sure that businesses are following the law and that they're not employing people who are here illegally. In terms of the visa overstay, and another problem is with the prisons, my understanding, that instead of deporting people, and this was one of the problems in California, where we just saw, however, a tremendous amount of people being released from the prison because of overcrowding. They said in California, they don't deport them if they commit a felony, or I guess if they're convicted of a felony, like they do here in Florida, that they keep them there to serve their time before deporting them. Is that a problem that we're seeing in Florida as well, or are they always deporting them? I think there's some of both. I can see both sides of that argument because you want to make sure people are punished. Part of the, in the criminal justice system, that punishment is part of the value of detaining people. Another part of the value is keeping them away from innocent people so they won't commit other crimes. And then there's obviously the cost issues of detaining people. So I think that has to be balanced. If someone commits murder here, we want to make sure they're punished and not sent to another country where they don't get punished. So I think that has to be balanced. Well, we're running out of time. I want to thank you so much for your time here today and wish you the best of luck in the campaign. And I'd like to hear back from you again between now and the time of the primary. Your website is georgeforflorida.com. For people that are interested, they want to donate money, they want to find out more. How about upcoming events? Anything coming up in the next couple of weeks? There are upcoming events, and the website at georgeforflorida.com is really the best place to find out about those events. And I saw when I was coming in a car that I think might be yours, Lisa, that had some Republican bumper stickers on it, so I brought you one. Oh, thank you so much. So next time I come, I hope to see it on the back of your car. Okay, thank you. And thanks so much for your time, and I hope to have you back again soon. Thank you to WBZT, to Carmine, for great work on the board, and thank you for listening. Call me for information on advertising and sponsorship, 561-361-8528. My website, www.lisamacy.com, LISAMACCI. Again, next week's guest will feature Clark Neely, senior attorney with the Institute for Justice, discussing the Second Amendment and his role as co-counsel for the plaintiffs in District of Columbia versus Heller. Historic case that the U.S. Supreme Court announced for the first time that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to keep guns at home for self-defense. Don't miss it. God bless you and your family. And remember to keep listening to the one and only Justice Hour, because if you don't know your rights, you just don't have any rights.
You've been listening to the award-winning Justice Hour with attorney Lisa Marie Macy. Join her next Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. for the hottest legal and political guests and topics. And God bless America.